Have you ever been called crazy when you pointed out something no one else noticed? That crazy label isn't just an insult, it's their weapon to keep you silent and confused. Today, we're going to unpack 4 crucial layers around this craziness. The narcissist, gaslighting playbook, how ADHDers have justice sensitivity that makes us targets, and how pattern recognition is the escape route from this whole journey that they try to take you on, and what it really means to reclaim your reality. Truth tellers, welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat podcast. I'm Angie.
I'm Jeremy. Just a quick disclaimer to start. We're not diagnosing or providing therapy here. We're sharing insights based on lived experience and research. If you're in crisis, please reach out for professional support. Because calling someone crazy can feel isolating, but naming the tactic for what it is, that's where the power starts. So let's dive in.
So when we talk about the gaslighting playbook, narcissists distort reality using different tactics like name calling you crazy. They use deflection, where they're just trying to, throw you off and go somewhere else and not answer a question. Denial, complete denial of what you saw or heard or experienced. Shifting blame or projection, or just completely rewriting the story in an execution of a smear campaign. I've referenced her before, but Dr. Ramani talks extensively on a lot of the tactics on gaslighting. And there are a lot of different narcissistic abuse experts that you can research as well. But so when we're talking, I'll go through all those tactics a little bit and jump in whenever.
Yeah. I mean, I know everything you just said you've experienced.
Right.
And I've experienced through you, so.
Right, exactly. So let's start with name calling. So narcissists believe that they are better and smarter than everyone in the room. So they feel entitled, and so entitled that they think that they can treat you however they want, and you're supposed to take it. So when they realize that you're not doing that anymore, you're no longer blindly following and hanging on their every word, and you see the harm that they're causing, and maybe you stand up for yourself, they have to try to bring you back down under their control, so they're above you and you're below them. So they're so emotionally immature that they can't speak about actual behaviors or a situation that happened and experience, on a basis of this was right, this was wrong, this is the situation that happened. Because in their mind, it's not about their behavior. It's about their right, them as a person, they're right, and you're wrong. And you're not just wrong. You're insane now, right?
You're thinking that it was them or going against what
exactly.
their thought. Okay.
Going against them at all. So you're insane. You're irrational. You're stupid or crazy, right? They need to discredit your character so others won't listen to you, because they don't have any other. They know you're right. They don't like that you're calling it out. So they have to assassinate your character to other people so that when you tell people the truth and you are honest, they're jumping ahead of it with, a smear campaign, or just calling you a name and acting like you're crazy. She's making a big deal out of nothing, that type of thing. And if you look at, bullies at any point, they're just like immediately go to name calling. There's things that they're they're so obvious that they don't have a leg to stand on that they immediately go to like this immature, you're stupid, oh, you're nuts. Like,
yeah. Like when your brother said that you were on drugs because you take ADHD meds.
right.
But it was to discount the family issues
Right.
that you were uncovering and bringing light to that he was catching up to. And in order for him to not look foolish, he had to discount everything that you were saying by saying, oh, well, she's crazy. She's on drugs because she takes ADHD meds.
Right.
Look at her. She's too skinny.
Right. Right. So, I mean, name calling is a very, very easy red flag to spot. The second someone goes to name calling, especially as an adult, you just go, really?
Yeah.
You know, if you're healthy, you go, really? Okay, that's great. Deflection. Deflection is. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Also, you've talked about this before. Saying that someone is a narcissist is not name calling. I feel like
Correct.
we need to make that.
Right. We've talked, yeah. So, and Dr. Ramani talks about this a lot, is we're not diagnosing them with narcissistic personality disorder. We are using the term narcissistic or narcissism based on behaviors. These are narcissistic behaviors because, I mean, most narcissists don't self-reflect long enough to get a diagnosis. So it's really hard to even diagnose them, but we're speaking on the behaviors.
Right.
So deflection. Deflection is one that kills me. Like, especially since I've been coaching, it's so obvious when they just won't answer a simple question. And deflection really looks like just that, just not answering a simple question. Instead, they'll ask you a question to try to throw you off. And maybe to bide some time to come up with an answer or a lie, but it's usually just to throw you off topic and make you defend something so that now we're focusing on the question you just asked me instead of the original question. So, and they love. My dad is perfect. I mean, I'm sure, I shouldn't say anyone, but having a conversation with him, if there's any sort of conflict, he does this one, where if you misspeak when you're talking to him, he will deflect anything that, any basis for your conversation by picking a single word that you misspoke. And even if you've already corrected yourself, or you say, that's not what I meant, pause, I'm correcting myself. And they'll just keep going back to it over and over and over without answering your question. They keep going back to, what did you mean by that? No, you still haven't told me, what you mean by that. And this actually was in like a text thread with my sister and brother and my dad. And he's like, do you have an example of what you mean by that? Like, so if you give an example, then they'll say, no, that's not correct. And then they'll go back, you still haven't given me an example. Mm-hmm. So when you actually say, nope, this is what this is, they say, no, that's not what that is. And then they'll come back after you explain it. No, give me an example.
So you can't move forward in the conversation. You can't find any resolution because in that resolution, there may be inconsistencies with the narcissist story or their, for lack of a better term, narcissism may come to light by finding that solution.
Exactly.
So they deflect to stall conversation in progress.
Yeah, they don't want a resolution.
Right.
So they'll keep going back. You still haven't given me an example, just to put you on the defensive rather than them being responsible for their behavior. So deflection is a really good one. And that's why people say our conversations go in circles because of this. Mm-hmm. You have to keep going back to the original point, and they're deflecting every time you do, and they blame you for making the conversation go in a circle when you're just like, nope, you never answered the first question. That's why I have to keep going back.
Yeah.
Another one is denial. This is, I really think denial is so shame-based that you can actually live in a place of denial. Like, to me, I can't fake anything. For anyone, like I can try. It's not, it's kind of obvious, but the denial comes from this shame-based fear of being wrong. Like they cannot be wrong. So they will just completely deny or, claim to have no memory of anything like that ever happening, right? And sometimes they act like you must not understand what you're saying because they have no idea what that means or what you're trying to say. And they, claim no idea. And, or the simple blatant lie of I never said that or I never did that.
Right.
Even when you have texts, emails, call recordings, conversations with people you actually trust that, confirm all these things, right? It doesn't matter. They'll straight up deny. The next one is blame shifting and projection. So they do this too, or they use projection to avoid accountability. So they turn around and somehow make it your fault. Like you are manipulative. You are controlling. They attempt to find some tiny thing you did wrong. And it could be like long in the past and not even relevant to what's happening now in order to compare it to what you're currently bringing to them to kind of even the score. Like that's what they need to do. And of course, the thing that you actually did is completely exaggerated to sound more offensive now. So they try to like play up their victim status by saying, they didn't bring up back when you did that. They didn't bring that up because they wouldn't just like pick a fight with you out of nowhere. But since you don't seem to care and since you're doing it now, well, here it is. Try to land that on your feet right now so that you have to now go through that again instead of talking about what you need to be talking about in the moment. It's maddening. Like the stuff that comes out too. I mean, it's like comparing threats, someone saying, if you are abusing my sister in any way, I will kill you, which is a protective, I'm going to stand up for these people that I love.
Right.
Do not harm them. Versus if you show up to the wedding, I will have a gun and a backup. Those aren't even in anyone's sane mind, right? So, and then the last one that I on the list, and of course this is not extensive, the extensive list, this is just some of the big ones, but this smear campaign, the lies, they're meant to silence you by getting ahead of you telling the truth about them. And they're usually, part accusations of things like you never did, but they have done, or like claiming they know your intentions of doing these said things, even though they've never spoken to you about it. Mm-hmm. Followed by playing the victim because you're the crazy one stirring up all the drama. You're causing all the harm.
Right. They're projecting those negative things onto you, stalling the conversation, and then playing the victim. And which is kind of like that's kind of like the last resort, right? They're aggressive.
Oh, they know because they know you know the truth.
Right. And so
they panic.
They panic and then they play the victim.
When they're losing control, that's when they call you crazy. That's when they go to all these tactics because they know you're not getting on board. You're not falling in line. I'm going to have to work to earn your trust. Not doing that. Yeah. So they just call you crazy.
Right. And when they call you crazy, it's a strategy, not an assessment.
Right. It feels like an assessment. When you're called crazy, it hurts. Sure. Right?
Yeah.
They try to train you to doubt yourself. So the second you're called crazy, you're like, what? And anyone who has any level of self-reflection or cares about how they treat other people will sit there and go, was that crazy? Like, you really don't, I don't want someone to think I'm crazy or I'm doing things irrationally. Like, I was coming with a concern, you know? Mm-hmm. So you stop trusting your own perception of situations. You stop trusting your intuition, or you're really questioning your intuition. And the purpose of you doing that is isolation and to keep them in control. If they can get everyone to believe their lies with the smear campaign, they will never believe your truth. So you can't go to someone and now they've got you questioning your own intuition. So where do you go? You know, and because for ADHDers, the impact around this is, you know, our brains are already doubting our own capabilities, you know, these disorganized thoughts that are coming nonstop. And we're also like neurodivergently expressive, meaning loud and excited
Spicy
about things. Yeah. And so the gaslighting tends to stick a little easier for us because we hear these negative messages so often. So, and they can stick initially and sometimes for a while. And sometimes they stick and then you work through it. But the consistent gaslighting, criticisms, and accusations from these people in your family, it's exhausting. And you can feel confident at first, and then the consistency of this abuse wears you down into this place of chronic self-doubt and feeling like you don't know what actually happened or what is going on.
Which is exactly, you know, that's a page torn directly out of the Narcissist Playbook, is that they're trying to create chaos and confusion so that you are questioning yourself, so that eventually you'll have so much self-doubt and hopefully some self-loathing like they have to just give up and go away. Mm-hmm. You know, thankfully though, you throughout your situation, you've been very consistent in your education, your constant learning, all of the books that you're reading, research that you're doing. Right. I feel like that fuels your confidence.
Absolutely.
Not your desire necessarily to then go back at the people attacking you. I think that it is, it's more fueling your confidence in, oh, I'm not crazy. I am on the right path. I am doing the right things. I'm trying to make myself healthier, which really, I've said this before, is the goal for the people in your family who are treating you poorly, who are unhealthy. You would love for them to do this education and research and find a healthy path for themselves.
Well, and I think we talked about in the last episode where, you know, understanding my trauma history and actually getting re-diagnosed and, you know, looking at everything, you know, when I got to the point of understanding my ADHD and implementing all these tools to help, you know, work with my brain instead of against it, and the spotlight was on these family problems. They're still there. Nothing was changing in that. So when you actually gain, you know, this is why we always talk about awareness, understanding, and action is the core of coaching. You know, when I do it, is like, we need to understand, we need to be aware of these things so that we can notice them when they come up, then take that awareness to learn about it, to understand, to educate ourselves around the issue so that we can take action. And in any of these situations, like finally understanding my ADHD, I was like, okay, now I need to understand this. Like, I didn't necessarily know what boundaries were. I used them a lot just because of my justice sensitivity, but like I used boundaries without calling them boundaries. I did that. No, that's not okay. I'm not going to put up with that. You can't treat me like that. I always did that as a kid.
Understanding your ADHD freed you up to then move on to other things like boundaries.
Right.
The
Right.
the burden of the ADHD being undiagnosed, the self-loathing,
Not having any tools.
right.
Right.
That's such a burden. That's a prison that you're in. And then once you were able to unlock some of that, and just understand, that's how I feel about my anxiety. When I read the book My Age of Anxiety by Scott Stossel, that unlocked anxiety for me. I've since passed that book on to family members who have anxiety. I've gotten feedback that it's too overwhelming to read, which it is. It's really, really intense, but it helped me understand where anxiety comes from, the history of treatments for it, and it put it in perspective too of like anxiety's fear of the unknown. A lot of people have it a lot worse than I do, and part of that is comforting, and part of it is understanding the I don't know, genetics of it, the science of it, helped me become free of that crippling anxiety and be able to then move on to other things, self-esteem, empathy, education for my family members.
Right.
But
it's also like when you say other people have it worse than I do. Yes, of course, there's always going to be a situation, but it also matters. Like what you're going through is affecting you, so that matters. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're comparing, your battle with other people's battles. You're just saying, you know what? I can pause and be grateful for the things that I have, the things, that aren't as bad. And I can also say, hey, this is really getting in my way. What do I need to do about it?
100%. Yeah, I'm not comparing someone else's anxiety to my own. I had that realization. The author of that book the whole first chapter, it starts with him just getting sick before a presentation, and it might be before his wedding, and it's mind blowing. Like it's hard to make it through the first chapter of that book because
you related to it so much.
You relate to it if you have anxiety, but then you're also like, oh my God, this guy's gonna have a heart attack for nothing, for no reason. It's and then you kind of puts your own situation into perspective of why am I really feeling this way, and what can I do to combat that?
Well, and that's why we talk about in healing these things, like, because CPTSD, trauma recovery stuff is heavy, right? Like you can pause a book, or you can, like I have that one book about generational trauma, It Didn't Start With You, by Mark Wolin, and I had to pause that because it put me in scenarios. It's like, picture yourself and, your parent is standing 5 feet in front of you. And I was like, bookmark, I'm not going there right now. Like things like that. And you can step back in. But it's heavy, but it's so important. Mm-hmm. So like educating ourselves through podcasts, there's podcasts that I'll listen to sometimes where it's really heavy. I'm sure stuff sometimes we talk about here is heavy, but like it's really important to not feel alone, mm-hmm. to feel like you can connect, like things resonate, and also know, okay, this is getting really heavy. I need to step away. And sometimes you just need to feel the heavy. You need to cry it out. You need to get to that place. But your body will tell you, if you listen to it, what you need next. All right, so we're going to move on to the aspect of the ADHD scapegoats, justice sensitivity, with this idea of being called crazy and, all these narcissistic abuse tactics being used on you. And there's lots of studies about how ADHDers have a high justice sensitivity. If something feels unfair, we can't unsee it. It's like the truth telling gets punished in these toxic families, and we can't just shut it down. And there's a bunch of different personality trait research that you can look to, but it shows that justice sensitive individuals are more likely to call out the unfair treatment in the moment, but are often silenced. So when you're justice sensitive, it's almost like an unconscious, immediate response to stand up for what's right and jump into action. So if you bring up, inequitable treatment, they call you dramatic, or you're too emotional, and you're shut down. They don't even, it's not like they're saying that you are incorrect in what you're saying, right? They're just name calling to deflect from the truth that you just brought up. You're so dramatic. Okay, what did I say? What did I say, right?
Right. It doesn't stop that thing from being true.
Right. And it's like, in my family, they keep going back to the background check and saying things like, that's what you do, Angie. You do background checks on people that have nothing to do with you, quote, which is not only a complete lie, because this was the first time I'd ever done a background check. I've used Google, as every other human being on earth has, and to research, I did that to research different situations that have been concerning, but it's like, come on. It's a complete redirect from the actual problem by them saying that's what you do. It's like, instead of saying, Angie, you're the problem for running the background check, where's the curiosity about what is on the background check, right? Because I'm not bringing concerns to someone having a speeding ticket. That's not what's happening.
Right.
So the thing about being someone with high justice sensitivity means you're aware. It means you're intuitive. It means you're emotionally connected to someone. That's why you feel this sensitivity for them. You're deeply caring. And those sensitivities come from us feeling the pain of the world, or our own, with an intensity that others may not. That's an ADHD experience. So we are able to be empathetic and also call out harm. And that's the threat to abusive people.
Yeah. ADHDers can have big feelings, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Your moral radar is a gift.
I realize that now, right?
Yeah. But in toxic dynamics, it's turned against you.
Yeah. It absolutely, and awareness of the injustice is powerful, and that's what's dangerous to them, which is why they weaponize your perception. They deflect any of your questions. They want to mock your intuition, like you're listening to your spidey senses. But in reality, they just they're mad. They made it flipped around because you figured it out before. You didn't even need solid proof. You had that intuition. You had a feeling. You're paying attention to stuff, and you figured it out. Proof followed, right? Proof always follows when these things are happening. So that's why they're mad. They're mad that you figured it out before them, because that puts you above them. You're smarter than them. You listened to your intuition. They didn't. So they're mad. They need to bring you back down. So that's what brings us to pattern recognition. Love my pattern recognition. And that is the key to escaping this because of the crazy making. So when you're being gaslit, the antidote to that is pattern recognition. So saying, wait, this is happening again. Pause. That will rebuild your trust in your own perception. Like, my justice sensitivity came out when I saw this person disrespect my sister. Then the next few interactions I had with her felt off, like something was wrong. My intuition was pointing out these behavior patterns. So I began journaling about it and really like following the patterns accurately. And then I went to find solid proof because I realized as time went on, it wasn't getting any better, or my concerns like weren't being softened. The patterns of his like toxic behavior weren't breaking or softening as time went on.
There wasn't an apology. There was no remorse. It
wasn't just like a one-off, oh, he was in a bad mood, because we've talked about that too. Like really just like noticing patterns, because if it only happens once and they say, hey, I made a mistake, you move forward and you probably won't even think about it again. But the reason why people say I'm having the same fight, or the same thing keeps coming up, it's because it's a pattern. It's coming up to show you something, and you just need to pay attention to it. So when that pattern was clearly controlling and abusive, and then it was also growing from person to person, I realized, okay, there's something going on here. And in cognitive psychology, there's studies that show how pattern spotting strengthens your awareness and resilience in these moments. So if you're living in denial, or you're trying to deflect, or you're just writing things off, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, and you're not paying attention to the patterns, you're putting yourself in harm's way. Okay, so let's walk through this. Keep a validation journal of events, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just like a piece of paper.
Yep. Record what happened, your reaction, any pushback you received.
Right. Like I told you, like when I first started journaling, it was like a newspaper. Right. Happened on this day at this time. This is exactly what's said, and I didn't add in the feeling parts. But you have to add that in, because if you're like, oh, I felt unsafe this time. Oh, and you go back and your notes are very similar. The next time it happens, you go back to that journal. And then comparing your entries as you go.
You'll see gaslighting loops.
Right. Immediately.
Right.
And use that evidence to affirm your reality when that self-doubt creeps in, when you feel like you can't trust your intuition.
Right. Makes sense. You're building your inner witness. You didn't make it up, right? You can say that to yourself. I didn't make this up. Right. I'm not crazy.
Right. And I think they're really good at, in part of the, the projection, trying to project these traits that aren't yours, in ways to throw you off, because you're going to defend that.
Right. Yeah. It's projection.
Yeah. And it's hard, because you're like, wait. I wouldn't even think of doing these things. Why is that happening? Mm-hmm. So when the journal becomes your memory, especially like this is traumatic stuff when this is happening consistently, and it's all coming at you from all these different people because of the smear campaign and, whatever the toxic dynamic in the family is. And so it holds you accountable for the things you're doing as well, because you're logging everything and, you know, keeps you in your own like clarity, where I see things clearly. I'm like, a lot of times writing them down gets it out of your head. And it also is, you feel like, okay, I've just supported myself moving forward.
Well, you're able to reflect on how you responded in a situation as well, right? And you may, just like when we do our little planning sessions before an event, where we walk through a scenario. I've come back to you and said, wow, I'm really glad that we did that, because I reacted this way, and had we not talked it through, I may have reacted another way and then regretted it. Journaling in these situations, looking back over your notes, you may have that self-reflection and go, oh, you know what? I didn't like that I said this. And next time I'm going to handle it a different way. And you're going to feel better about yourself. And then the next time that conversation comes up, or you're in a similar scenario, you're going to have that self-awareness to go, you know what? I'm going to take a deep breath. Here's how I'm going to handle it. I've seen you do that firsthand. And it's because you've done these things that we're talking about today. Right.
And it is hard at first to start doing it, because your body responds to being attacked and being told lies, and, you know, even this person that you don't like or is harming you, you still, if you're a good person and it doesn't align with, you know, your values, to be a crazy person and cause harm to other people, it still hurts. It doesn't take away the hurt, even if you have these tools. But sometimes, and we've talked about this with ADHD medication or tracking sleep, you think something happens all the time. Or like, oh, I didn't sleep all week. When really it was like one night you got really bad sleep, and then you've just gotten a little less, like you feel it. But until you start tracking, you don't really realize. Like, I was all of a sudden, oh my God, I need to get so much more sleep. And then once I was tracking, I found a sweet spot. Okay, this is usually when I feel pretty good. And then you can gauge your day on how much sleep you got. Okay, how much am I going to pile on? Same thing with this. If you feel like it's happening all the time, but then you notice as you're tracking it, it only happened twice, why does it feel inside of you that it happens all the time? It really affected you. That's why. For you to feel that intensely like it's always happening, and it happened on 2 occasions, maybe it happened consecutive days, or maybe it happened twice in 1 month. That really bothers you. Jump on that before it happens a 3rd time.
Right.
Be honest with yourself, self-reflect, do some research, get into what is going on there. That's part of the journaling. So what does it mean to actually reclaim your reality? It's literally stopping the internal gaslighting. You don't need their approval to validate your own truth. And you need to stop listening to the voice in your head that is actually them and not you. I mean, that's really why I did the background check to begin with, because I knew I needed them to validate my experience at that time. And I knew they wouldn't just listen to my feelings or my experience in my relationship with my sister. I needed proof for them to even listen, a chance to listen. And now knowing I don't need them to validate, I still would have done the background check now. Like, looking back, I still think I would have for my own proof, because I got silence from everybody. No one would talk to me about anything that was happening. So in order for me to feel not just completely devastated, I needed to understand what was going on. And there comes a point where you don't need any more proof. You need to move forward. But at that time, I definitely needed more proof. So some practical things that we can do. And this first one is super, super, super hard for people who grew up in these toxic families. But develop a self-validation affirmation. Telling yourself, I trust my perception, or my feelings are valid. And like actually saying that, sticking a post-it note, like it's really hard to be like, oh my gosh, I need this, right? Like, okay, I get it. I know. Like, I intellectually know that my feelings are valid. I intellectually know that my perception is real. But does my body believe it? Are my emotions like aligned with that? Like, it's really hard. You have to tell like this inner child that never got that safety. You need to tell them that you're safe now and you got this. But it's hard.
It's hard, but you could do it in a confident way. It doesn't have to be... I'm not saying this is cheesy, but...
No, I know, but...
You do it, and I think you don't even know it. Where
I know.
You do it, like, you get spicy about it, and you're like, my fucking intuition is on point.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
See, you say it all the time. That's an affirmation of...
Right. And I think that's where my brain always goes to like, oh, give yourself a positive affirmation. Say nice things to yourself, which I do. But I say it in my way. I say it in my voice. I say it in that spicy way. Yes.
That's what everyone should do.
I know.
Say it in your way. Whatever builds that up and that confidence up in you, your self-esteem, whatever your version of that affirmation is.
I totally agree.
Say it that way.
And I think that's the hurdle when you're first doing this sometimes. You don't know what that voice is. You don't have that confidence. Like, I think, and I've said it a million times, my ADHD saved me and helped me survive this toxic family, even though it also put me in harm's way in a lot of ways. Because I didn't fawn. I didn't just, acquiesce. I literally fought. My immediate trauma response was fight, always.
Right.
And then I would crumble at certain times. But I've always had this fight. I've always had this justice sensitivity that's stronger than anything else. But a lot of people don't necessarily have that. And it's hard to go, what is my voice? Like, I need to give myself an affirmation. So find something. Maybe it's not, I trust my perception, where I trust my recollection of this event on this day. Start there. Start very simple. And you'll build on it. The more that you're recognizing these patterns and you're journaling about it, the more you'll connect with what feels right to you, and you'll start to empower yourself. So when you get that validation from a book or our podcast or something, you go, okay, I'm on the right track. It gives you momentum to keep moving forward. So you're building these trust networks outside of your toxic family system and using the grounding tools of a pause. I know what I know. When they're trying to confuse you, like, that's why we run the scenarios, so that we can pause. I already know this was going to happen. They have a very, talk about patterns of behavior. We could write their script because they only use these tools. They don't have any curiosity to use new tools to grow. So they only have these tools. Everybody says, oh my God, did you live in my house when I was a kid? Because the narcissistic playbook is, they all act the same. They all do these same tactics at different ways, in different moments, in different, variations of, violence versus, passive aggressive behavior, right? There's like the whole range of how intense it is. But the tactics are all the same.
Yeah.
So if this is what they always do when this happens, prepare yourself for that. And prepare yourself for like 2 other things that also could happen, right? But just the more you build on this, you can actually say, I'm not who they're trying to, tell everyone I am, or who they need me to be in order to be in a relationship with them. I'm good. Like, I know who I am. And again, there's tons of studies out there about self-validation, building your resilience through a lot of trauma recovery resources.
Yeah, it's not about being combative. It's about refusing to be erased.
Right. Like, the courage that we don't ever give ourselves credit for, but it's important to realize that it takes courage to choose that reality over, this survival sanctioned like delusion that they live in. And when you stay in the place of denial and pretending things are fine and just sweeping everything under the rug, the problems don't go away. They just get worse. So let's bring this home. All right.
Bring it home.
Narcissists call you crazy to blind others from the truth that you're telling because it holds power. Okay? Your ADHD-fueled justice sensitivity made the confusion louder because you don't just fall in line and ignore the harm because someone else tells you to look the other way. It also makes you more powerful. Pattern recognition is what turns all of this into your superpower. Yeah, your escape. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, I promise you. Once you wake up to it, you can't. And it gives you the knowledge you need to set boundaries to protect yourself. Reclaiming your reality is the true victory. Mm-hmm. Even if it's, there's grief in it. You don't need their help. These people who have been harming you. You don't turn to them for help. They're the ones harming you. If they want to join you, like you said, in growing a stronger relationship, then they can make that choice. But with people like this, don't hold your breath. It's just, you do the work that you need to do.
Yeah, the truth doesn't lie. You're not crazy. You're awake.
Right. So thanks for joining us today. If this resonated, share it with someone who's doubting themselves, who's being called crazy for seeing the truth too soon, who's being scapegoated. Like, subscribe, and leave a review, and come back next week. Until then, stay curious, stay clear, and keep telling the truth. Till next time.